Maybe don't know.
This time, this time, this time, this time, this time to build, 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 this time power, this time to build power, this time to build power, this time to build power.
What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Chris Hampton.
And this is Nate Drolet.
And we are here to talk about, and you know what, when I first saw this, because this was your topic, I was like, did he get this backwards? And then I went in and looked at it and I'm like, no, he didn't get it backwards. This is actually a really cool idea. And we should also do the opposite of this. So we're going to do both. But today we're talking about lessons you can take from climbing outside and apply them in the gym. And I know that's going to sound strange for some people because like the gym is training for outside. But there are things we do outside that we don't normally do indoors. Partly because we're just not prompted to. It's not the like easy solution or not the best solution in that space necessarily, because indoors and outdoors have different constraints that are sort of leading us into specific solutions. Mm-hmm. And I think some of those constraints that are different outside are things like usually there's fewer people, maybe not if you're at drive-by, or at the Project Wall and Rifle, there might be more people there. But usually there are fewer people outside. You're usually spending longer days, but have fewer of those days outside than you do in the gym. And the things out there are not set by a professional setter. So those are kind of the three big constraints I see that are different outside than indoors, that sort of lead us into these 5 things we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. And I'll add just a few briefly. I love those. I would also add, typically you don't have as many options outside, at least not like in that moment. Like, yes, totally. In all of the outdoors, you have lots of options, but maybe not in that boulder field or that cliff you went to that day.
Yep.
We also have like a limited time frame in terms of like weather. Like there's a lot more not every day is as guaranteed.
Yep, totally.
And then the last thing I'll say is the permanence that comes along with outdoors. Like we hope it's permanent. And for the most part, rocks are very permanent. And so that's it's hard to come back to a gym climb year after year. Board climbs maybe, but even then, like boards get swapped out, new iterations come out. Like, there aren't many boards that are that persistent throughout time. Like eventually they're all going to be replaced. Moonboard 2016, maybe the only one at this point that people keep. It doesn't matter what new iteration comes out. People are like, we're just going to keep going back in time.
We're just going to stick to this. Thanks, but no thanks.
Exactly. Yeah. The downside to doing a great job early on.
Like, yeah, totally.
We liked your early work, but it's nice that you're experimenting.
Yeah. I'm not going to say anything about the blue holds. No, they look like they could be cool, actually. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I hope they are. And I actually real talk, I have a ton of respect for the fact that they're using a new material that is going to be more long lasting. That's better for the customer. That's better for the environment. We're not just chucking plastic away
totally
all the time. I really honestly, I wish they would talk about that more. The fact that this is a more resilient plastic that's going to last longer. That's why they couldn't keep the yellow holds around. I would, if I was them, I'd be pushing that hard. But, also a comment I really enjoyed and one of their posts, someone was like, hey man, Henry Ford said, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Like,
Yep,
and yeah,
absolutely,
man,
man.
like I get it. I see those blue holds. I'm like, they look like a big footprint, but realistically, they're probably better for quality control.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of things, and I hope it turns out great.
Yeah, I'm glad they keep doing new things. I think
Yeah,
that's
man.
important.
Like innovation's important.
Anyway, back to our we got sidetracked by the moon board there, as
Mhm.
as I think many climbers do these days, getting
Yeah.
sidetracked by the moon board.
Yeah.
We're talking about what we can take outdoors, bring indoors. I love your other constraints for outside. And I think this is interesting simply because we've talked a lot. Lots of people have talked a lot about how to train indoors to go outside.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about what can we take from outside to indoors. And I think number one thing here is outside we tend to be a little more tactical in our approach instead of
Yes.
wasting effort and wasting time. And when we go in the gym, we often throw the tactics out the window and just climb on things willy nilly, which can be fun if that's your goal. Like go in, have fun,
Oh, ton of
play.
fun.
You can learn lots of things from that. But I think you can also apply those same tactics in the gym and get a lot more out of it, frankly, than you are if you're just going in to climb things.
Yes. I completely agree. I think it's something that isn't appreciated enough. This idea of how many great goes do you actually have on a climb, like in the gym? Um, you know, Unfortunately, the more advanced you are, the fewer the goes tend to be.
Yeah.
And this runs counter to what a lot of people think, but it's for a few reasons. For one, you're stronger. So you can you can do more damage to your muscles by being stronger than you can if you're weaker. That's unfortunate. The other thing is you know how to try harder. Also, you know how to try better.
Yeah.
You watch beginners climb, I was a beginner once too, and I did this too, but they can fall for just the silliest reasons. They'll do a cross move and they hit their own hand off a hold. I'm going to pretend like I haven't done that in the last year. But they will fall for technical reasons very often when there's not going to be a lot of muscular fatigue, where the better you are, you're a little more locked in, and more often, if you're falling, it's because of muscular failure, maybe some sort of technical failure, but the amount of physical output you have for each go is dramatically higher than for a beginner and or an intermediate climber. And so your goes are numbered. You really only have, so many bullets in the chamber for that. Or yeah, you only have so many chances to really give a good effort. If you're an advanced climber, man, tactics are so important for this. Show up so that each one really counts.
Yeah, and I'll say for the more beginner, intermediate climbers, they're making lots of mistakes that are wearing them down a little bit at a time and then become compounding mistakes, and they don't recognize that they're giving worse efforts because their efforts could end at any moment and they don't know how or why.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And some people don't even try when they get to the hard move. I've been sending you videos. I'm not going to name the person, but for God's sake, they keep trying boulders that are hard for them. And I use the word trying there, even though that's not the word I mean.
Yes.
Because they climb up and basically just drop off because they don't think they can do it. And we see that a lot with beginner climbers, especially, where they're not falling because they're really giving effort. They're just falling off because they're confused.
Yeah. And they'll fall and they'll be like, oh, I don't know what happened. And you can be like, oh, you had both hands and both feet on wrong holds from what you did the last few times. So really? You sure? It's like, we are all sure. I promise. Yeah. So I think, for beginners, just the tactics are super important just because you need to learn them. For intermediates, you need to solidify them. You need to burn them into your soul. And for advanced climbers, man, you have only so many matches to burn every time you go into the gym. Make them count.
Yep, totally. I agree with that 1000%. I think it's an overlooked thing in the, in the pantheon of like, I'm trying to improve myself as a climber. Practicing tactics, it just isn't done enough. It's part of performance for people, but it's not part of their gym experience very often.
Totally. And it doesn't have to be that much. Even just, an easy one for the gym. Oh, you want to try a boulder? Walk like 20 feet back. Can you see the holds better there? Walk 20 feet to the right. If you're in Europe, walk 5 or 6 meters to the left, whatever that conversion rate is. Yeah, like walk around, actually look into the holds. That's a simple tactic. Make sure you know what you're going for.
Yeah.
But it's such an easy. What am I even saying? Look at the holds above hold number 3. Like that will be a revelation for a lot of you. I see you. Like,
and I think it's also a great place to practice like the sport climbing tactics that for some reason people are still averse to outside. Like, you can learn the power of these tactics by applying them to things in the gym. The second go send. People have an aversion to going up the first time on a thing and purposely stopping at every bolt to review what you've just learned, or for some reason they have to go a muerte the first try every time. And maybe the most overlooked, underused, disrespected tactic is the low point, which you and I have recently talked about. And if you start practicing that in the gym, you'll see the power of it.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite things, like doing in-person coaching here in Salt Lake. I'll work with people who will be like, like the V7 in the gym is normally like, that's a multi-day project. And I'll pick something out. I'm like, okay, we're going to try and do this in one session. Yeah. And I will essentially just coach them through what are good tactics right now. Like, and sometimes it's just asking like, hey, what is the right decision you should be making right now?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, and they're like, well, if I was being responsible here, I would climb those purple jugs and then do the top out. I'm like, let's be responsible. And it is amazing to me how often this will happen. And then they send the climb in like, 5-6 tries. And they're like, that's crazy. This would normally take me 3 full sessions to do.
Yeah.
But now it's like, yeah, that's the power of tactics. Like what normally takes you a week's worth of climbing, essentially, you just did in 25 minutes.
Yeah. And we apply these things outside because we have limited time out there. We want to make the most of it. We want to send these rock climbs faster so we can do other rock climbs too. And then in the gym, we don't realize if we apply these tactics, we're likely to get better faster, send more things before they get taken down. There's so many benefits to being tactical beyond just you're learning better tactics if you practice them.
Yeah, absolutely. And if for anyone who's like, oh, my tactics are fine, like I go to the gym to get stronger. I said this earlier, but I'll say it again. It makes every go more potent, and it makes it a better stimulus for strength down the road. Like if you can pull on and you're not missing hold, you're not grabbing the wrong part of the hold and falling because you just missed wherever the volume was jibbed, or you didn't look at the hold well enough or the footholds well enough, and you actually get to give good physical output. That's going to make you stronger. That's going to make you more fit. If that is purely your goal for the gym, it is still worth it to lean into tactics.
Absolutely. And our number 2 is sort of a tactic that we should all be employing more. We do it every single time we go outside.
Yeah.
Like, even if I'm going to the boulders for a couple hours,
yeah,
I take snacks, food of some sort.
Little treat.
If I'm going into the gym, I very often don't take a snack in. And then midway through the session, I have to walk back into the house and get some food because I didn't bring it into the gym. And when I used to climb in a commercial gym, I was very bad about not bringing snacks, and I'd have to go buy something in the lobby midway through. So bring snacks, bring food. Eating in the middle of a session is a really good idea.
I don't know if you've seen this in Trainer Eyes, but there is a snack break option for exercise. I program it for most of my clients, and I'm like, hey, go eat carbs. Like, eat something that, and I'll do it like, I'll have them warm up, snack break, or it's like hangs, then snack break, and then they do their projecting or whatever the workout is. But man, it is so important. And it's something that, we'll listen to advice from like strength athletes or like strength coaches who'll be like, oh yeah, if you're lifting, like, you don't need to worry about an intro workout meal or shake or anything like that. Just make sure you've eaten within the last 3 hours, have something for afterwards. Generally, you're fine. But there is a massive asterisk around this. And all these strength coaches will tell you, oh, you're working out for longer than 90 minutes. Oh, you're working out. You're going over 2 hours. You're an endurance athlete now. You need to go look at how they fuel, because we're not doing that. Like because a good like lifting session, if you're, let's say you are a basketball player who's going to go lift some weights, you're not going to be in there for 2.5 hours. What are you doing? No, maybe 90 minutes. And if that's the case, sure, eat a meal 2 hours ahead of time. You're fine. Like, eat another meal within an hour and a half after you're done. Sure. Like, that's great. But climbing's a skill sport. Skills require a lot of repetition and frankly, a lot of time. And for a lot of us, like a 3-hour session is not unheard of. 2.5-hour session, totally normal. If you're doing a 2.5-hour session and you're not eating something along the way, that last hour, man, you're going to be really underperforming.
Yep, for sure. It's funny. I hadn't really thought about this, but when I was like still sport climbing in the gym years ago, and we were doing lots of laps, and I was becoming an endurance monster, I was really into power gels at the time. They're fucking disgusting, but I was so into them. And we would eat 2 or 3 power gels every single climbing session, period.
4,000 calories.
But I never used to take real food, which seems absurd. And Yasmin would always have a Tupperware bowl of something, with her. And I was like, that's ridiculous. Just get a power gel.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, wow, I really wish I had like a Tupperware bowl of rice and broccoli while I'm in the gym. That sounds like the perfect fucking thing. And a gummy bear, of course.
Of course. Collagen.
Or a bag of gummy bears, let's be clear.
Yeah, I think this is wildly underrated. Like, having some sort of food with you, it's such an easy win. And it's the kind of thing that, ironically, I found it. I was actually doing a fat loss cut. This was several years ago. And I worked with a coach, and they were like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, if you're reducing calories, you're absolutely going to want to make sure you're having some sort of food during your workout. I was like, okay, cool. I had better energy for my training on a calorie deficit because I simply was eating during my workouts. And I was like, oh, I've been fucking up for so long. Like,
totally.
Yeah. And now I do it now. And it's like, oh, this is like, because a part of me was like, oh, well, I turned 30. I can't have sessions longer than 90 minutes anymore. And it's like, oh no, you're literally starving yourself. Like, you're working out, you need fuel. Yeah.
Do you have favorite gym snacks, and are they different than your crag snacks?
So I've been stealing this. I love this. It is I have a lemon lime protein powder, like a whey protein, and I mix it with lemon lime Gatorade, and it tastes like a lemon meringue pie. It's delicious. Like, so if I'm actually climbing outdoors, I'll put in 2 scoops. like 2 scoops protein, 3 scoops Gatorade. So that comes out to like 75 grams of carbs and 50 grams of protein. And I do that for just like, I still bring actual food with me too, but that's like a nice, like just little sipper so that I can like, if I'm projecting, I like brush the holds, take my shoes off, I'm resting, I'll take a little sip, that kind of thing. But I still have like sandwich, all that. But when in doubt, gummy bears are fantastic, just straight sugar essentially. Also, unfortunately for me, the gym I climb at sells Snickers for 94 cents a piece after tax. Jesus Christ. They're throwing those things at me. What am I supposed to do, Kris? Like, so yeah.
Snickers is the original power bar. I mean,
they're fantastic.
Why not?
Yeah. And at that cost, I would be silly not to. So yeah, every now and then if I'm like kind of in a bind, let's say it's been a few hours since I've eaten, I'll grab a Snickers and I'll kind of like eat half as I'm warming up, go through like my full climbing warm up, do some hangs, eat the other half. And then it tends to like ride me out through the workout.
I love bananas. I don't like taking them to the crag as much because they always end up squashed everywhere.
Always.
But I do love them in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be a Snickers addict when I was climbing. I mean, I took Snickers all the damn time. Now, though, I think I tend more toward like the anything sour gummy bears or any kind of Sour Patch Kid type of thing. For some reason, it just feels like it hypes me up more. I don't know why. Maybe I'm more prone to sugar these days. But the sourness of it, I really like while I'm climbing. So those type of gummy things and bananas and apples actually lately have been in the rotation too. So
nice. Were you around in Waco the season I brought an entire like carton of Warheads?
I don't think so.
Oh man, I was like, I was visiting my family in Texas and they're like, Nate, we're going to go to Sam's Club. You need anything? And for some reason, without thinking, I was like, an entire carton of atomic warheads. And my dad had like never heard of them. He's like, what are they? I was like, they're candy. It's useful. And yeah, so I took those and I would just like fill my pockets with them. And that was like my equivalent of like smelling ammonia salts or like that powerlifters do. I would just like rip open one of the green ones, pop it in my mouth, like whole face cramps up. And I'm like, okay, let's go. Like,
I'm just imagining you with your face buried in the jar, sniffing the warheads to get psyched.
Pretty much. Yeah. But that you talking about gummy bears getting you hyped up. I was like, yeah, that's atomic warheads. That's great. Just like gets you there.
Oh man, I might have to get some of those. And I'm always a fan of bars of various kinds for whatever reason. I tend toward the already packaged bar. Just simpler, easier. I don't have tons of time to make things. And my crag snack is pizza. It's great. Always pizza.
I love climbing with you.
Yeah, I just load vegetables onto a frozen pizza and I take it to the crag with me. And every crag day for the last several years has been pizza.
Yeah. I will say this, when I was in Font, every French person, they might do this normally, but I don't know, had a baguette with them. Just, like that was the norm. They would go out and it would just be like sticking out of their crash pad or out of their pack.
Funny. I did fried rice for a while. I would bring fried rice I'd just make a giant batch of it and I would bring that to the crag. And for some dumb reason, really dumb reason, I never brought utensils because I was always like, oh, I can just get some sticks and eat it with chopsticks.
Yeah.
So I was always eating it with weird floppy sticks that you find around the Red River Gorge.
Yeah. I'm going to say one snack thing to watch out for people, because a lot of people, it takes them a while to realize this is what's happening. But if you really love coffee, which I do, for a lot of people, caffeine makes their hands sweat a lot
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
And some people have crazy adverse reactions, and it will actually make their skin like incredibly sensitive and like fall apart. Like I've heard of some horror stories of people who like were heavy coffee drinkers, and they just had horrible skin all the time, and they didn't realize how much it was tied to caffeine. But for me, like I love coffee. I have to take decaf with me if I'm going to go bouldering, like, and I want a hot drink with me, because if I drink caffeinated, like full strength coffee, my skin will sweat uncontrollably the entire time.
That's interesting. I'm a coffee drinker in the mornings, but for some reason I always take tea to the crag when it's a cold day.
That's probably a lot better of an idea.
I don't know why. That's just the thing I've done. Even though we've gone on a total snack tangent here, number 3 is don't go on the tangents. Have an actual plan.
Yes.
When you arrive at the gym, and we tend to do this outside. At least if you're doing the right thing, you have a plan when you go outside. I know some folks who don't and just show up at the crag having no idea what they're going to do that day.
Where are we going?
But generally speaking, because of our limited time out there, we plan ahead. And in the gym, we tend to, I'll just see what's going on once I get there.
Yes. And I think there are times of the year where this is fine. If you're like, hey, I'm just going to like go in, have a fun time. This is like a downtime for me. That's cool. I think climbing should be fun.
Yeah.
And there are absolutely times of the year where that's fantastic. But if you're like, ooh, I'm here to train, and especially for the people who are like, I have my regimented hangboarding and lifting and these things, but then like, you know, the 2 hours that you're actually climbing on the wall is just based on whatever's been set that week, man, we're dropping the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. If the only thing you're planning are the supplemental exercises that aren't happening on the climbing wall, you're planning for the wrong sport.
Yes, absolutely. You know, and it's funny, I can always, like, one of my ways of telling if my training is going well is if I unconsciously find myself like beta miming throughout the middle of the day my gym project. When that happens, I'm like, oh, things are going good. Like I'm locked in. Like it doesn't happen often enough, frankly, if I'm being completely transparent. But that's like, there is a very strong correlation between when my training's going well and when I'm like, I'll just be making coffee, because we're on the topic of coffee, and I'll be like thinking about my gym project or my board project, whatever it is. And I'm like thinking about what can I be doing for that? And I'm like, because I've got my plan. I know what I'm going to tomorrow. I know what I want to try, and like I'm locked in. That's like, to me, there's some special sauce there.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that. I love being psyched on a good gym project.
Yeah.
And having that like consume your thoughts when you're away from it. It feels just as good as having that same thing for an outdoor project, at least for me.
Yeah.
And that sort of brings us to our next one. But first, we are going to take a quick break. Sport climbing season is coming fast. Got a nemesis route you need to clip chains on? For over a decade, we've helped climbers prepare for their goals. We've seen patterns emerge, showing what's most effective for each level of climber. Those patterns became our proven plans, a training system that you can follow from complete beginner to 514 and beyond. With workouts geared toward your goals and focused on improving not only strength and power, but tactics and mindset as well, each proven plan comes with a built-in group chat and an option to work directly with one of our coaches. We don't believe in a one-size-fits-all approach to climbing. You shouldn't either. All right, we have returned, and our next thing that you can take away from outdoor climbing and translate it into the gym to help you get better faster is going to be setting goals. Have actual goals in the gym instead of just the super broad, I want to get better kind of a goal. and we were just talking about getting excited about gym projects.
Yeah.
Those things are so exciting for me. I've got one in the gym right now that uses a bunch of Roy Quanstrom's little tiny pinches.
Ooh, those are
And
cool.
it's so hard and so cool and scary at the top. Like, it's got moves that give me anxiety, and I can't stop thinking about it.
That's
So,
awesome. Yeah.
setting goals in the gym is just as important as setting them outside.
Yeah. I mean, goals help you figure out where you are now and where are you trying to go. I have, and they don't always have to be. I think people get a little bit sour about this because they're just like, oh, well, it's gym grades. And like, who cares what grade you climb inside? Well, it's like, hopefully you do. But like, and hopefully you care for your friends. But like, I've got a client who had like a bunch of stuff going on in the spring, a lot of things, got detrained. And we're like, okay, time to get back in shape. What does this look like? And one of his workouts every week is a 3-strike circuit. So 3 attempts to do a problem. Whether you do it or not, you move on. And we kind of set the parameters of minimum of 6 problems. Like if he can't make it to 6, he's probably picking too hard. And maximum of 10. Like if he hits 10 and he's like, I've got all the energy in the world, they're too easy. So we're kind of shooting for that range. And initially it was like, okay, V5, V6. Like that was just, I think and it wasn't many V6s initially. I was like, okay, that's where we're at. Let's do it. And over time, it was like, okay, like our goal is to up these numbers. How do we make the average higher, but also how do we make the quantity higher? And he just went on a trip to Waco. And just before that, I think he had a day of, it's like 3 V8s and the rest were V7s. And he was,
Nice.
yeah, and we were talking about it. He was like, man, like V6 feels like I get to phone. Like if I add that into the circuit on a day I'm off, it still feels like phoning it in now. And that is awesome. Yeah. And it's because that was a goal of this is what we're shooting for, 6 to 10, like total problems and increasing the difficulty, increasing the quantity over time. Because we had that goal, we can now look back and say, oh, this is where we are now. This is where we were. And that's like been such a source of motivation. I mean, truly like week to week of even being like, ooh, like I got all V6s to like this week. It was only 6 of them, but hey, that's awesome. To like, yeah. I got 10 V6s. Cool. Is it time to add V7s? Let's go.
Yeah, totally. We talk a lot about the process and having process goals. And, I think a lot of people get confused about this and they'll say something like, well, if, 6 V6s, that's an outcome goal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, but all of this is your process of improving. These are training goals. This is the same as setting I want to raise my bench press weight to get stronger goal. This is the process. So these are important goals along the way. You shouldn't only be setting the goals outside and the little sort of what's the word I'm looking for here? Not tactical goal, but like I guess tactical goal works. Shouldn't only be setting tactical goals of like I want to do my this link, and I want a high point to here and low point from here, and then I try red point attempts. There should also be training goals about, to lead you into whatever these ultimate outcome goals are.
Absolutely. I mean, and that I will say that was something I wish I would have done better earlier on in my climbing, because I was meticulous with how I approached my outdoor time. Like I was so focused. I knew what I wanted my pyramid to look like. I knew what styles I wanted to approach. Man, I was so thoughtful with everything. I went into the gym. I just goofed around. I mean, I tried hard, but it was like I could have just as easily been like, what do I actually want to do here? Like, what is my purpose? What am I shooting for? Who is the climber I want to be 6 months from now? And what are the steps I take to get there? Like, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I got lucky. I happened to be around a lot of good climbers who were very motivated. And I showed up and I tried hard, and that took me a long way. But man, it would have been a lot better had I actually like been a little more focused and had some more goals.
Yeah, and I think, like what you said earlier, a lot of people feel like it's just the gym, it doesn't matter. And I'm sure there's some people out there listening to this saying that right now, like, well, it doesn't matter, it's just the gym, like all my goals are outside. But the gym is the place where most of us spend the most time
Yeah.
preparing to go outside. So if you're not setting goals there, you're totally missing the boat.
Yeah, absolutely. Like how like it's like if an Olympian was like, "Oh, I've got goals for how I want to compete in the Olympics," but nothing around all the training. It's like, really, you've got goals for, 3 days every 4 years, but nothing in between? Like that seems like a problem.
Yeah, totally. And our final one here, one of my favorite blog posts ever on the website was a bit of a collaboration between the two of us. You started it and made it a like, the complaints people would make about 5-star boulders, and then I turned them all into gym comment cards.
Yeah.
And people love those fucking comment cards. But it's because it's true. That's why people like it. So our fifth one is, stop complaining about the styles or the setting and all these things we whine about in the gym because we wish it was another way. We don't get to make those complaints outside. So why are we making them in the gym? And there are lots of rock climbs outside that objectively would be bad in the gym.
Tons of
to all these people complaining, but they get 5 stars outside because they're so unique and interesting.
Yes.
So embrace that inside because you do outside.
Yeah. Man, it's so easy indoors to be like, oh, there's not a foot where it's supposed to be, or this hold's turned wrong. You don't say that outside. Like
this move is dumb.
Yeah.
I hear that so often.
I'll say that outside too, but then I'm just going to be like, cool, it doesn't matter.
I'm going to do it anyway.
I need to do it. Yeah. Like it doesn't matter if you're 80 feet up a sport climb, you can be like, this move's dumb. But then you're like, well, time to get through this dumb move. Like, cause I want to do the sport climb. So you just don't, if you climb outside a lot, you kind of become a little bit blind to how mediocre to bad most rock climbing moves are. Like they're just generic at best. Some are just strange. And then like you go inside and wow, it's like people have formed their careers around making art on the wall for you to enjoy. And one foot holds out of place and you're like, oh, this thing's fucked.
Yeah, totally.
I
used to be of the opinion that everything set in the gym should be 5 stars.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm sort of the opinion that setters should be making more crappy routes and boulders for people indoors to force them into it so that they don't, they don't get to complain. Everything's going to feel better. If most of the routes in your gym are 1 star or 2 stars, when you do get that 5-star route, you're going to be really grateful.
I love this because this is like the argument that so many route setters make around sandbagging. They're like, oh, well, it's good if we sandbag because that'll prepare people better. It's like, but this is qualitative sandbagging.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're going to be thrilled when you go outside. It's not going to be nearly as terrible as it is here.
You're going to go climbing on a lot of things outside that are just objectively choss.
And you're going to love it.
Because
it's great. Like,
yeah.
Yes, I think so. I will actually credit this. I think board climbing can be pretty good about this, especially, for me, like I first climbed on the moon board in 2011. And I remember I had a V5 bend moon problem. Never did it. I flashed V10 that year. Never did this V5. 12 plus sessions into it. But I never cared because I was like, well, like I somehow, for me, and I've seen this with other people with boards, I took it with the same seriousness that I take outdoor problems. I was like, I can't complain. Like, this is just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is, but about board problems that seem to do that to people pretty well. And maybe it's certain boards do it more than others, but I was like, well, this is just the challenge. It was.
Yeah, maybe it's because you've accepted that this is where the holds are. This is how they're set. Like, you can't change it. Whereas in the regular gym, like, especially back in the day before it was, as corporate as it is now, people would just straight walk out, into the setting closet, get a wrench and turn the hold if they didn't like the way it was set.
Dude, I don't know if I've ever told you about this, but I used to set at a gym that there was a pair of coaches that would do that to us if they didn't like the problems, or if they felt like it didn't suit
Wow.
them, not even just the kids, but them, because they were also climbers. They would literally just go add footholds. They would turn holds all the time. Like, so we would be setting all day. I'd come back and they would coach at night. I'd come back the next day. Like, my problems, all the holds would be changed in terrible ways, I would say. But yeah, they would, like, if it was a challenge to them, they'd be like, oh, well, I just think V6 should feel different than how this V6 felt. And so everything turned into their style. But yeah, they would go through and they would tweak all of our boulders.
That's hilarious.
We had wonderful working relationships.
Maybe that's why you feel that way about boards. Like, they're set that way and you can't change it,
Yeah.
Same as outside. That's the way it is. Just yesterday, I was like, man, if this sloper were just slightly at this angle and I could get some compression, this move would be way easier. But it's not that way. I can't change it. I just accept it. If I were setting that in the gym, I absolutely would have turned that sloper a little bit to give myself some compression because I want to play to my strengths. And that's why I'm not going to get better faster, on my problems in the gym.
Yeah. And that's something that, having been a route setter, like, it is so easy. Like, if someone isn't calling you out on it, like, you just naturally grab it. Like, everything, you're just like, oh, well, this will be a little nicer if it's just turned a little bit more. And you do that with everything. And it's like, oh, well, this foot would be a little nicer if it was a touch higher. And everything becomes this Goldilocks zone. And I think this can definitely happen. Like, setting your own problems to train with can be, I think, such a valuable tool. But you really have to hold yourself accountable to be like, okay, like the game I play now in the Crab Shack in my home board, anytime I'm setting a problem, I will look down at a cluster of footholds, and whichever one I'm like, ooh, gross, that's my foothold.
Yeah.
Like, whichever one seems like it's just out of, it's like, oh, this is just too high, or it's just too low, or it's turned just the wrong way, that's my foothold. And I don't get to question it.
Yeah, I think that's how you should do it. You should set what you are willing to complain about, Like, that's
like
what's
that.
going to make you better. And I've talked about this a bunch. I've written about this, that when I encounter a move at a gym or outside that I'm like, this is just awkward or dumb, I'm like, that's on me. I need to figure out, I need to gain the necessary skills to make this less awkward or less dumb. And there are certainly moves that I've come across over the years that I never found a way to make less awkward or less dumb. But I still think there's probably a way. I just didn't have whatever thing was necessary to make that work. I didn't have it because I've come across far more moves that I initially thought, that's really dumb. And then I found a cool way to do it. And then I'm like, oh, I really like this move. Somebody take a picture of me doing this move.
I was going to say, then you do the classic climber thing of you go from being like, this move's stupid, I hate this
telling
boulder.
everybody about it.
Exactly. Then you
Try
like
my
unlock
beta.
it. And you're like, yo, come over here. This is great. No, you're going to want to climb on this problem. Like,
Exactly.
Weren't you just shit talking this like a week ago? It's like, yeah, but no, it's good now.
Yep.
And that's like, that is a lot of climbing. Like, and this holds a special place in my heart because I love 1 and 2 star climbs. Like, the idea of looking at climbs objectively from this idea of like, what makes something objectively good? Is it tall enough? Is it high enough quality rock? How's the landing? All these things. It's not how I view climbing. Like for me, it truly is this, what is the subjective experience of movement? And, you know, I just find that a lot in like 1 and 2 star climbs where it's like, oh, well, I had to find this really funny, unique way. And I've not really done this before. And I really enjoy that. But it's hard to do that indoors. It's hard to really embrace this challenge and be like, hey, this is just something new and unique for me, rather than being like, next, I'm just going to take a step left and climb on the other, climb right next to it.
Yeah, I'm convinced it's because someone made it probably in the last couple of days, because we know everyone only tries the new things in gyms.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, well, this is still fresh. It could still be changed. Let me go find the setter and talk to him. Maybe we can make this better together.
Even worse, and I've seen this. Maybe at a time I was guilty of this. But it's like you look at the name tag and you see who said it, and you're like, Jeremy said it. Next. That checks out.
Yeah. I've seen people try a problem, say, well, this is stupid, and this wasn't here 2 days ago when I was here, so maybe they're just not done with it yet. And go out to the desk. Are they done with that problem? Is there more they're adding? Because I'm pretty sure it's missing a foot.
Amazing. I mean, imagine if you did that to a kitchen. You went to a restaurant. They drop your food off, and you're like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Can you take this back to the chef? Ask them, are they done with this? This can't be done, right?
Are you sure you're finished?
Sure." Yeah. So to wrap this all up, it's so easy. When we're outside, it's so easy to look at it as just an objective challenge. Oh, this is something I need to overcome. And I think you're right. I think indoors, the fact that we can attach it to someone, we can place blame other than on God.
Is transmutable the right word here? Is that what it is? I don't know what transmutable means, but it seems like it's the right word.
It feels right.
It's transmutable. Yeah. I don't think that's right, but it seems like it is.
Someone will let us know. Message us.
Yeah.
But there is so much value in taking things more seriously, because otherwise we fall into this trap of being like, oh, the Goldilocks zone. This is a little too reachy. Well, this is too bunchy. I don't really like those holds. All these things. And it's so easy to become picky and find these things where you're like, oh no, this is challenging, but it's all challenging in a very comfortable way. Mm-hmm. And before you know it, and one of my favorite excuses that I'll hear people throw out and that I challenge my clients on is they'll say, well, I wouldn't do this outdoors. My response is, if this was outdoors, you would do it today. You wouldn't even question it. You would not be balking. And so I think there's a lot of value in that, of just saying, hey, this is what it is. There isn't bad route setting. There's only bad climbers. As route setters love to say. I don't know if I agree with that.
I'm not necessarily in disagreement with that.
Yeah.
But I did just look up transmutable, and it is capable of being changed in substance as if by alchemy. So yes, I think that's appropriate.
Nice work.
All right. You guys know where to find us, powercompanyclimbing.com, where there are training plans, tons and tons of blogs with great advice, courses, products, all sorts of things to help you learn, grow, and excel.
You don't know.
This time, this time, this time, this time, this time to finish, 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 this time